What if the richest country on earth is quietly falling apart? Singapore's income per person is higher than America's, higher than Switzerland's, by some measures, the highest on the planet. 60 years ago, it was one of the poorest, most fragile countries in Asia. Today, it's the model every government wants to copy. But its birth rate just collapsed to a record low, lower than in a war zone. Most people here don't actually own their homes. And over 1 million migrant workers are invisible in the numbers that make it all look perfect. Something doesn't add up. If you're new here, welcome. Hit subscribe and like, because what happens next is where this stops adding up. Let's get into it. So how does a country with nothing, no oil, no farmland, not even its own water, become one of the richest places on earth in a single lifetime? The answer starts with a deal every Singaporean makes with their own government. Since the 1960s, workers here have been forced to save huge chunks of their paycheck, as much as 37% of it, into a state-controlled fund called the CPF. That money doesn't sit idle. The government invests it, along with hundreds of billions more, through sovereign wealth funds like GIC and Temasek, buying stakes in companies and assets all over the world. In 1969, Armstrong left a photograph on the moon. Not for science, not for the mission, but for his daughter, and nobody knew that for 30 years. It worked. Multinational corporations flooded in, drawn by low taxes, one of the cleanest governments on earth, and a system that could get things built in months, not years. This is the machine that built modern Singapore. But a machine built on forced savings and one-party control doesn't just produce wealth quietly, it produces trade-offs, and the first one hides in plain sight, in the one thing every Singaporean is told they already own. So what do Singaporeans actually own? For most of them, the answer is a lease, not a home. 77% of the population lives in HDB flats built by the government, sold not as property, but as a 99-year lease. When that lease hits zero, the flat and the land it sits on go back to the state for nothing. No refund, no compensation. And the closer a flat gets to that deadline, the more its value quietly disappears. Flats with under 60 years left already sell for almost a quarter less than newer ones. The government promised a way out, a scheme to redevelop aging blocks before their leases run out. Since 1995, it's covered fewer than 5% of them. A second promise, made in 2018, still doesn't have a finalized plan 8 years later. And here's the part that hits hardest. Most of the money used to buy these leases came straight out of people's retirement savings. Today, roughly 3 in 10 Singaporeans turning 55 don't even have the most basic amount set aside for retirement because it went into a flat that's shrinking in value every year they live in it. The dream they were sold wasn't a home, it was a countdown. Singapore's skyline, its airport, its housing blocks, the machine you've been looking at this whole video, was largely built and is still run by people the system doesn't count as Singaporean. Nearly half of everyone working in this country, over 1.6 million people, are foreign workers, and most of them, the ones on construction sites and shipyards, earn some of the lowest wages in the country. Employers pay the government a monthly fee just to hire them, a levy that brought in over $6 billion in 2024 alone, projected to hit $7 billion this year. That's roughly $19 million a day. None of it is required to go toward the workers themselves. And since 2007, migrant workers have paid full foreign resident rates at public hospitals. The same healthcare subsidies Singaporean citizens rely on simply don't apply to them. Advocacy groups say some workers today still earn close to what construction workers were paid here in the 1990s. They built the machine, they're not written into its results. So who actually gets to keep what Singapore makes? So what if the richest country on earth really is quietly falling apart? Not in the way you'd expect. No crash, no crisis on the news. Singapore's economy is real, the wealth is real. But so is a birth rate lower than a war zone, a housing system where ownership quietly runs out, and over 1 million workers who built this country without ever being counted as part of it. None of that shows up in GDP. None of it shows up on a best country to live in list. GDP was never built to measure who a country's success actually belongs to, and Singapore might be the clearest example on earth of that gap. So here's the real question. If the numbers can look this perfect while this much gets left out, what do the numbers from every other successful country actually hide? If you want to see this exact pattern play out somewhere else, go watch Prosperity. It's linked right there. And if you want more of this, the answer is still the same. Subscribe, like, and turn on notifications.